sharp contrast with Donald Trump. Donald Trump always puts himself first. He built a business career, in the words of one of his own campaign staffers, off the backs of the little guy. And as a candidate, he started his campaign with a speech where he called Mexicans rapists and criminals, and he has pursued the discredited and really outrageous lie that President Obama wasn't born in the United States. It is so painful to suggest that we go back to think about these days where an African American could not be a citizen of the United States. And I can't imagine how Governor Pence can defend the insult-driven, selfish, me-first style of Donald Trump.
Governor Pence, let me ask you, you have said Donald Trump is, quote, thoughtful, compassionate, and steady. Yet 67% of voters feel
that Senator, you and Hillary Clinton would know a lot about an insult-driven campaign. It really is remarkable. At a time when literally, in the wake of Hillary Clinton's tenure as Secretary of State, where she was the architect of the Obama administration's foreign policy, we see entire portions of the world, particularly the wider Middle East, literally spinning out of control. I mean, the situation we're watching hour by hour in Syria today is a result of the failed foreign policy and the weak foreign policy that Hillary Clinton helped lead in this administration and create. The newly emboldened the aggression of Russia, whether it was in Ukraine or now their heavy-handed approach. Their heavy-handed approach.
You both have said Vladimir Putin is a better.
Gentlemen, we're going to get to Russia in just a moment, but I do want to get back to the question.
In the midst, Elaine, thank you, Senator.
These guys have praised Vladimir Putin as a great leader.
How can they defend that, Senator? We do have that coming up here, but in the meantime, the questions were about your running mates.
I must have hit a nerve here.
Why the disconnect?
At a time of great challenge in the life of this nation, where we've weakened America's place in the world, stifled America's economy, the campaign of Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine has been an avalanche of insults. Look, to get to your question about trustworthiness, Donald Trump has built a business through hard times and through good times. He's brought an extraordinary business acumen. He's employed tens of thousands of people in this country
and paid
with your running mates.
But there's a reason why people question the trustworthiness of Hillary Clinton, and that's because they're paying attention. I mean, the reality is when she was Secretary of State, Senator, come on. She had a Clinton Foundation accepting contributions from foreign governments.
You are Donald Trump's apprentice. Let me talk about this
Senator,
issue.
I think I'm still on my time.
Well, isn't this a discussion?
This is our open discussion.
Senator, let's talk about the state of the world.
Let me interrupt you and finish my sentence if I can. The Clinton Foundation accepted foreign contributions from foreign governments and foreign donors while she was Secretary of State.
Okay, now I can weigh in.
She had a private server.
I get to weigh in
that
now.
was
Let me just say
discovered
which I did raise. Senator,
to keep that pay-to-play process
you have an opportunity
out of the reach of the
Governor
public.
Pence doesn't think the world's going so well, and he, is going to say it's everybody's fault.
Do you?
Let me tell you this: when Hillary Clinton became Secretary of State, Governor, absolutely, without firing a shot, and instead of 175,000 American troops deployed overseas, we now have 15,000.
Right, and
these are very, very.
And Iraq has been overrun by ISIS because Hillary Clinton failed to renegotiate.
More American troops in Iraq,
Hillary Clinton failed to renegotiate a status of forces agreement.
No, that is incorrect.
The debt could be disastrous for the country. Governor Pence.
I think the fact that under this past administration of which Hillary...
Do you want a you're hired president in Hillary Clinton, or do you want a you're fired president in Donald Trump? I think the Trump plan is a different plan. It's a you're fired plan, and there's two key elements to it. First, Donald Trump said wages are too high. And both Donald Trump and Mike Pence think we ought to eliminate the federal minimum wage. Mike Pence, when he was in Congress, voted against raising the minimum wage above $5.15. And he has been a one-man bulwark against minimum wage increases in Indiana. The second component of the plan is massive tax breaks for the very top. Trillions of dollars of tax breaks for people just like Donald Trump. The problem with this, Elaine, is that's exactly what we did 10 years ago, and it put the economy into the deepest recession since the 1930s. Independent analysts say the Clinton plan would grow the economy by 10.5 million jobs. The Trump plan would cost 3.5 million jobs. And Donald Trump, why would he do this? Because his tax plan basically helps him. And if he ever met his promise and he gave his tax returns to the American public like he said he would, we would see just how much his economic plan is really a Trump first plan.
On that point, Governor Pence...
Pre-done lines. Look, what you all just heard out there is more taxes, $2 trillion in more spending, more deficits, more debt, more government. And if you think that's all working, then you look at the other side of the table. I mean, the truth of the matter is the policies of this administration, which Hillary Clinton and Senator Kaine want to continue, have run this economy into a ditch. We're in the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression.
15 million new
There are
jobs.
millions more people living in poverty today than the day that Barack Obama, with Hillary Clinton at his side,
And the poverty
stepped
level
into the
and the
Oval
median
Office.
income
We have the lowest,
improved dramatically between 2014 and 2015.
Honestly, Senator, you can roll out the numbers and the sunny side, but I got to tell you, people in Scranton, no different. People in Fort Wayne, Indiana, no different. I mean, this economy is struggling. And the answer to this economy is not more taxes.
But it's not.
Is a businessman, not a career politician. He actually built a business. Those tax returns that came out publicly this week showed that he faced some pretty tough times 20 years ago. But like virtually every other business, including the New York Times not too long ago, he used what's called net operating loss. We have a tax code, Senator, that actually is designed to encourage entrepreneurship.
But why
in this
won't he
country.
release his tax return?
Well, we're answering the question about the business thing.
I do want to come back on this.
His tax returns that showed he went through a very difficult time, but he used the tax code just the way it's supposed to be used, and he did it
by Social Security. Donald Trump wrote a book, and he said Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, and privatization would be good for all of us. And when Congressman Pence was in Congress, he was the chief cheerleader for the privatization of Social Security. Even after President Bush stopped pushing for it, Congressman Pence kept pushing for it. We're going to stand up against efforts to privatize Social Security, and we'll look for ways to keep it solvent going forward, focusing primarily on the payroll tax cap.
Governor Pence, I'll give you an opportunity to respond.
well.
The tone that's set from the top. Donald Trump during this campaign has called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He's called women slobs, pigs, dogs, disgusting. I don't like saying that in front of my wife and my mother. He attacked an Indiana-born federal judge and said he was unqualified to hear a federal lawsuit because his parents were Mexican. He went after John McCain, a POW, and said he wasn't a hero because he'd been captured. He said African Americans are living in hell, and he perpetrated this outrageous and bigoted lie that President Obama is not a U.S. citizen. If you want to have a society where people are respected and respect laws, you can't have somebody at the top who demeans every group that he talks about. And I cannot believe that Governor Pence will defend the insult-driven campaign that Donald Trump has run.
All right, I want to turn to our next segment now, immigration. You're running the
Clinton and Tim Kaine want to continue the policies of open borders, amnesty, catch and release, sanctuary cities, all the things that are driving wages down in this country, Senator, and also too often with criminal aliens in the country, it's bringing heartbreak. But Donald Trump has a plan that he laid out in Arizona that will deal systematically with illegal immigration, beginning with border security, internal enforcement. It's probably why, for the first time in the history of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, their union actually endorsed Donald Trump as the next president of the United States, because they know they need help to enforce the laws of this country. And Donald Trump has laid out a priority to remove criminal aliens, remove people that have overstayed their visas. And once we have accomplished all of that, which will strengthen our economy, strengthen the rule of law in the country, and make our communities safer once the criminal aliens are out, then we'll deal with those that remain. But I have to tell you, I was listening to the avalanche of insults coming out of Senator Kaine a minute ago.
These were Donald.
He says,
hold on a second.
It's my
Governor.
time, Senator.
It is, in fact, the governor's time.
I apologize. This is your 2 minutes.
Thanks. I forgive you. He says ours is an insult-driven campaign. Did you all just hear that? Ours is an insult-driven campaign. I mean, to be honest with you, if Donald Trump had said all the things that you said he said in the way you said he said them, he still wouldn't have a fraction of the insults that Hillary Clinton leveled when she said that half of our supporters were a basket of deplorables. She said they were irredeemable. They were not America. I mean, it's extraordinary. And then she laid one after another ism.
Donald Trump apologizing to John McCain for saying he wasn't a hero? Did Donald Trump apologize for calling women slobs, pigs, dogs, disgusting?
She apologized for saying,
Governor, it is his 2 minutes, please.
Did Donald Trump apologize for taking after somebody in a Twitter war and making fun of her weight? Did he apologize for saying African Americans are living in hell? Did he apologize for saying President Obama was not even a citizen of the United States? You will look in vain to see Donald Trump ever taking responsibility for anybody and apologizing. Immigrants, our proposal. Donald Trump proposes to deport 16 million people, 11 million who are here without documents, and both Donald Trump and Mike Pence want to get rid of birthright citizenship. So if you're born here, but your parents don't have documents, they want to eliminate that. That's another 4.5 million people. These guys, and Donald Trump has said it, deportation force. They want to go house to house, school to school, business to business, and kick out 16 million people. And I cannot believe that Governor Pence would sit here and defend his running mate's claim that we should create a deportation force so that they'll all be gone.
Senator, we have a deportation force. It's called Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. And the Union for Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, for the first time in their history, endorsed Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States.
So you like the 16 million deportation plan?
Senator, that's nonsense. Look, what you just heard is they have a plan for open borders, amnesty.
Our plan is like Ronald Reagan's plan from 1986.
They call it comprehensive immigration reform on Capitol Hill. We all know the routine. It's amnesty. And you heard one of the last things he mentioned was border security. That's how Washington always plays it.
No,
so
I always say we're going to do this
for
border security 3 years ago, and Governor Pence was against it.
Governor, Mr.
Ronald
Trump
Reagan
has
said a nation without borders is not a nation. Donald Trump is committed to restoring the borders of this nation,
so, Governor,
securing our
how
nation,
would these millions of
enforcing our laws.
undocumented immigrants leave? Would they be forcibly removed?
Well, I think Donald Trump laid out a series of priorities that doesn't end with border security. It begins with border security. And after we secure the border, not only build a wall, but beneath the ground and in the air, we do internal enforcement. But he said the focus has to be on criminal aliens. We just had a conversation about law enforcement. We just had a conversation about the violence that's besetting our cities. The reality is that there's heartbreak and tragedy that has struck American families because people that came into this country illegally are now involved in criminal enterprise and activity, and we don't have the resources or the will to deport them systematically. Donald Trump has said we're going to move those people out, people who've overstayed their visas. We're going to enforce the law of this country. We're going to strengthen immigrations and customs.
And he said, no, we're building the wall and we're deporting everybody. He said, quote, they will all be gone. They will all be gone. And this is one of these ones where you can just go to the tape on it and see what Donald Trump has said. And to add to it, we are a nation of immigrants. Mike is Mexicans are rapists and criminals, Mexican immigrants. When Donald Trump says about your judge, who's your judge? He said that Judge Curiel was unqualified to hear a case because his parents are Mexican. I can't imagine how you could defend that.
Gentlemen, I'd like to shift now to the threat of terror.
And she's got a plan to do it. She was part of the national Donald Trump. Donald Trump can't start a Twitter war with Miss Universe without shooting himself in the foot. Donald Trump does
that Iran will someday become a nuclear power because there's no limitations once the period of time of the treaty comes off.
Governor Pence, Mr. Trump has proposed extreme vetting of immigrants from parts of the world that export terrorism. But that does not address many of the recent terror
and security of the American people first, instead of Hillary Clinton expanding the Syrian
or instead of you violating the Constitution by blocking people based on their national origin rather than whether they're dangerous.
That's absolutely false.
That's what the Seventh Circuit decided. Here's the difference.
The Seventh Circuit.
We have different views on refugee issues and on immigration. Hillary and I want to do enforcement based on are people dangerous. These guys say all Mexicans are bad. And with respect to refugees, we want to keep people out if they're dangerous. Donald Trump said keep them out if they're Muslim. Mike Pence put a program in place to keep them out if they're from Syria. And yesterday, an appellate court with 3 Republican judges struck down the Pence plan and said it was discriminatory.
And those judges,
we should focus upon danger, not upon discrimination.
Elaine, to your point, those judges said it was because there wasn't any evidence yet that ISIS had infiltrated the United States. Well, Germany just arrested 3 Syrian refugees
Well,
who
I
were
know
connected to ISIS.
but they told you there's a right way and a wrong way to do it.
But look, if you're going to be critical of me on that, that's fair game. I will tell you, after 2 Syrian refugees were involved in the attack in Paris that is called Paris's 9/11, as governor of the state of Indiana, I have no higher priority than the safety and security of the people of my state.
But Governor
so you
Pence,
bet I suspended that program.
But Governor Pence,
and I stand by that decision. And if I'm vice president of the United States or Donald Trump is president, we're going to put the safety and security of the American people first.
Can we just be clear? Hillary and I will do immigration enforcement, and we'll vet refugees based on whether they're dangerous or not. We won't do it based on discriminating against you from the country you come from or the religion that you
practice.
But
the problem with that
is completely antithetical to the Jeffersonian values of equality.
Elaine, the director of the FBI or Homeland Security said, we can't know for certain who these people are coming from Syria.
Yes, we can. And when we don't let them know, we don't let them in.
So the
when
FBI,
we don't know who they are, we don't let them in.
The FBI and Homeland Security said, we can't know for certain. You've got to err on the side of the safety and security of the American people, Senator. I understand
by trashing all
the
Syrians
UN
or
wants
trashing
us
all
to
Muslims.
expand the
Senator
Syrian
Kaine, let me
refugee
ask you
program.
this. Secretary
We're going to
Clinton
put the
has
safety and
talked
security of the
about
American people
an
first.
intelligence surge.
Yes.
What exactly would an intelligence surge look like?
Dramatically expanding our intelligence capacities by hiring great professionals, but also we've got some of the best intel and cyber employees in the world right here in the United States working for many of our private sector companies. So it involves increase on our own work. That's why Donald Trump's claim that he wants to, that NATO is obsolete and that we need to get rid of NATO is so dangerous.
It's not his plan.
Well, he said NATO is obsolete. And look, if you push aside your alliances, who are you going to share intelligence with? Hillary Clinton is the Secretary of State who knows how to build alliances. She built the sanctions regime around the world that stopped the Iranian nuclear weapons program, and that's what an intelligence surge means. Better skill and capacity, but also better alliances.
All right, I'd like to turn now to the tragedy in Syria.
Cybersecurity surge at all?
You can have 30 seconds, Governor, quickly, please.
First, Donald Trump just spoke about this issue this week. We have got to bring together the best resources of this country to understand that cyber warfare is the new warfare of the asymmetrical enemies that we face in this country. And I look forward, if I'm privileged to be in this role, of working with you in the Senate to make sure that we resource that effort.
We will work together in whatever roles we inhabit.
We have an intelligence serve. But I will also tell you that it's important in this moment to remember that Hillary Clinton had
Syria,
we could put cybersecurity first if we just make sure the next Secretary of State doesn't have
a full investigation concluded that not one reasonable prosecutor would take any additional step. You don't get to decide the rights and wrongs of this. We have a justice system that does that. And a Republican FBI director did an investigation and concluded.
All right, we are moving on now.
Senator, if your son or my son handled classified information the way Hillary Clinton did, they'd be court. The United States of America needs to begin to exercise strong leadership.
Donald Trump again and again has praised Vladimir Putin, and it's clear that he has business dealings with Russian oligarchs who are very connected to Putin. The Trump campaign management team had to be fired a month or so ago because of those shadowy connections with pro-Putin forces. Governor Pence made the odd claim. He said, inarguably, Vladimir Putin is a better leader than President Obama. Vladimir Putin's run his economy into the ground. He persecutes LGBT folks and journalists. If you don't know the difference between dictatorship and leadership, then you got to go back to a 5th grade civics class. I tell you what offends me. Governor Pence just said that Donald Trump will rebuild the military. No, he won't. Donald Trump is avoiding paying taxes. The New York Times story, and we need to get this. This is important, Elaine. When a guy running for president will not support the troops, not support veterans, not support teachers, that's really important. And I said about Aleppo, we do agree. The notion is we have to create a humanitarian zone in northern Syria. It's very important.
Governor Pence, you had mentioned no-fly zone.
Donald Trump supports our troops. Donald Trump supports our veterans.
He won't pay taxes.
Donald Trump has paid all the taxes that he's... Do you not take deductions?
Gentlemen, this
How does that work?
About Syria.
That we're down from 175,000 troops deployed overseas to 15,000. But let me tell you what will really make the Middle East dangerous. Donald Trump's idea that more nations should get nuclear weapons. Saudi Arabia, Japan, South Korea. Ronald Reagan said something really interesting about nuclear proliferation back in the 1980s. He said the problem with nuclear proliferation is that some fool or maniac could trigger a catastrophic event. And I think that's who Governor Pence's running mate is, exactly who President Reagan warned us about.
Senator, that was even beneath you and Hillary Clinton, and that's pretty low.
But do you think we should have more nuclear weapons in the world will make us safer?
Senator,
that's what
Ronald Reagan also said nuclear war should never be fought because it can never be won. And the United States of America needs to make investments in modernizing our nuclear force for both deterrence
Donald Trump's claim that more nations should get nuclear
to our allies. But let me go back to this Iran thing. I mean, he keeps saying that that Hillary Clinton, who started the deal with the Iranians, prevented Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
That's what the Israeli head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is saying right now.
Well, that's not what Israel thinks.
Gadi Eisenkot, you can go check it.
You wouldn't necessarily know that. I know you boycotted Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech.
No, I visited him in his office. I visited him in his office.
You boycotted the speech. The point is, what this so-called Iran deal did was essentially guarantee. I mean, when I was in Congress, I fought hard on a bipartisan basis with
6 times tonight, I have said to Governor Pence, I can't imagine how you can defend your running mate's position on one issue after the next. And in all 6 cases, he's refused to defend his running mate's.
No, don't put words in my mouth.
All right.
If he's going to do that, you got to give him time.
And yet, he is asking everybody to vote for somebody that he cannot defend. And I just think that should be underlined.
All right, gentlemen, let's talk about Russia.
This is a topic that has come up.
I will give you an opportunity to do that.
I'll take them one at a time.
More nations should get nuclear weapons.
Don't try to defend that. Well, he never said that, Senator. And
he has absolutely said it. Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Japan.
Gentlemen, Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, annexed Crimea, and had...
You got to be tough on Russia. So let's start with not praising Vladimir Putin as a great leader. Donald Trump and Mike Pence have said he's a great leader. And Donald Trump has business dealings with Russia that he refuses to disclose. Hillary Clinton has gone toe-to-toe with Russia. She went toe-to-toe with Russia as Secretary of State to do the New START agreement to reduce Russia's nuclear stock. Them engaged in a meaningful way to cap Iran's nuclear weapons program, and yet she stood up to them on issues such as Syria and their invasion of Georgia. You've got to have the ability to do that, and Hillary does. On the other hand, in Donald Trump, you have somebody who praises Vladimir Putin all the time. America should really wonder about a President Trump who had a campaign manager with ties to Putin, pro-Putin elements in the Ukraine, who had to be fired for that reason. They should wonder, when Donald Trump is sitting down with Vladimir Putin, is it going to be America's bottom line? Or is it going to be Donald Trump's bottom line that he's going to be worried about with all of his business dealings? Now, this could be solved if Donald Trump would be willing to release his tax return. I'm doing business with Russia. The only way the American public will see whether he has a conflict of interest.
No, he hasn't said that.
Senator, your time is up. Governor.
Well, thanks. Just trying to keep up with the insult-driven campaign on the other side of the table.
I'm just saying facts about your running mate.
Yeah. Well,
and I know you can't defend
Senator,
him.
please,
I'm happy to defend him, Senator. Don't put words in my mouth that I'm not defending him.
You're not.
I'm happy to defend him. Most of what you said is completely false, and the American people know that.
I'll run through the list of things where you
old days
Senator,
where you
please,
can just say stuff and people believe it. Look, this is the alternative universe of Washington, D.C. versus reality. Hillary Clinton said her #1 priority was a reset with Russia. That reset...
Hi, everybody. This is Stefan Molyneux from Free Domain Radio. I hope you're doing well. So, Donald Trump, as I'm sure you're aware, has landed like a meteor on the landscape of American politics, kicking up massive Trump. One of the things that's quite amazing about watching the media tussles with Donald Trump is that Donald Trump has very clearly explicated his methodology, his approach, how he seals a deal, how he gains publicity, and the value that he hopes to gain out of the media. New York Post, quote, "Stop pretending. Donald Trump is not running for president. The only people who want Donald Trump to run for the Republican presidential nomination are Democrats." Richard Cohen from the Washington Post, quote, "If Donald Trump runs, other GOP candidates gain. Republican candidates better pray that Donald Trump gets fully into the race. He'll make everyone else look better. It's a fine prediction. I wonder how happy the Republican presidential candidates are that Donald Trump is leading them by double digits. Jonah Goldberg from the National Review, quote, "If Trump is a tenth as brilliant as he says he is, there's a really clever scheme hiding amidst all of this juvenile whining like a shiny pony obscured by piles of manure. The thing is, I'm too dumb to see it. All I see is a guy who's been preening for attention with bogus talk about running for president for years, who's deeply offended that nobody believes him or cares anymore." Excellent prediction. Stephen F. Hayes, The Weekly Standard, clown show. No circling back in the media to apologize for being so wrong. On June 16th, 2015, Donald J. Trump announced his candidacy for President of the United States at the Trump Tower in New York City. But media pundits and politicos claimed that it was a publicity stunt and that he would never file his official declaration or financial forms. Ana Navarro, GOP strategist, GOP for those outside of America is the Grand Old Party. It's another name for the Republicans. Quote, "He's going to be a distraction. I can tell you, I'm leading the Dump Trump movement. Trump's announcement was a rambling, ridiculous stream of consciousness. I can't treat it as a serious Republican platform, and I can't treat it as if it's coming from a serious Republican candidate." Simon Malloy from Salon, quote, "There's still no actual reason to pay attention to Trump because he's not and never will be a serious contender for the presidency. But if he's going to pretend and we're not going to ignore him like we should, then let's at least devote our energies to educating the voting public in minute detail on just how incredibly stupid he really is." And this is the kind of stuff where the media is really excellent at driving away their core constituency. If people love Trump and you dump on Trump, well, people are going to stop consuming your media. David McIntosh, explaining why he's a former Republican congressman, quote, "Our view of Donald Trump is, yeah, he's a great entertainer. He's been a good developer, but he's not a serious candidate for president." Karl Rove, Fox News, quote, "This guy's not a serious candidate. He had yet to file the one-page declaration of his candidacy with the FEC, it's the Federal Election Commission. He will delay filing his financial records, and mark my words, he will delay and ask for extensions as long as possible. Ignore him." Good job, Karl. Finger on the corpse of the nation. On June 22nd, 2015, Trump did file his election papers, commenting, "I am pleased to submit this filing to the Federal Election Commission, formalizing my campaign for President of the United States." So people thought that he wasn't going to file because you've got to declare your financials, and people thought, well, he doesn't want people to find out that he's not as rich as he says he is and all that, and, well, proven wrong. Now, you may have heard a tad of a kerfuffle on illegal immigration. So after mocking Trump, after ignoring his candidacy and labeling him as a complete buffoon, the mainstream media eventually figured out that Donald Trump was serious about his candidacy and, of course, wasted no time in going for his throat. There's an entire setup in American politics where people donate to politicians in return for political favors that help them make a lot of money. And Donald Trump is bypassing all of that by self-funding his own campaign and not being beholden to any of the lobbyists. So the lobbyists as a whole, the existing Republicans and Democrats, he's breaking the whole machine. Donald Trump. What did he actually say about immigrants? Quote, "When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending the best. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some I assume are good people, but I speak to border guards and they're telling us what we're getting." All right, I'm sure you don't need a lot of help breaking this down, but he said he's talking about illegal immigrants from Mexico, and there's a subset of them that are criminals. They're bringing drugs across the border, and they're rapists and so on, right? The New York Times. Trump's claim that illegal Mexican immigrants are rapists. Okay, so going from a subset to a whole. You'll see this pattern repeated over and over and over again in attacks on anyone the media doesn't like. We'll see this with Rosie O'Donnell. We'll see this with a variety of other issues. The Huffington Post. He called Latino immigrants criminals and rapists. Okay. Illegal immigrants, first of all, that's a subset of immigrants. Of course, a lot come in legally, and criminals and rapists as a subset of the illegal immigrants, so they extrapolated it so that he was calling all Latino immigrants criminals and rapists. Washington Post, he referred to Mexicans as rapists. See, that's even better because he's now apparently not just talking about a subset of illegal immigrants coming into the United States, but every single person in Mexico. Not true. Time magazine, Trump's comment that Mexican immigrants are rapists. Again, not true. Trump called Mexican immigrants rapists and criminals. Again, not true. LA Times, describing Mexican immigrants as rapists. Not true. Fortune, branding Mexican immigrants as criminals and rapists. Not true. Hollywood Reporter, he referred to Mexican immigrants as rapists. Not true. CBS News, Trump defends calling Mexican immigrants rapists. Not true. And again, the media, maybe there are older guys in the media who don't understand that there's YouTube or something, and so they don't know that people can go and get the real information, which widens their distrust in the mainstream media when you see someone's comments mischaracterized in such an egregious way. Exhaustion with political correctness. That's just what he said at the beginning, but who listens? After a Trump event in Arizona on July 16, 2015, Senator John McCain commented on the candidate's immigration proposal. Quote, "It's very bad. This performance with our friend out in Phoenix is very hurtful to me because what he did was he fired up the crazies. We have a very extreme element within our Republican Party now. He galvanized them. He's really got them activated." He's kind of insulting his own constituents here, and this is how deep the Trump sentiment goes. Now, you can look on the internet. John McCain has done criminals crossing the borders, let's build a fence and keep them out videos before, but this is a feud between John McCain and Donald Trump. Now, this statement from McCain, who has made very similar immigration crime statements previously, sparked a public feud between the two figures. So during a Q&A, Trump was asked about the comments, McCain's comments, and Trump said, "McCain insulted me and he insulted everybody in that room. And I said somebody should run against John McCain, who has been, in my opinion, not so hot. And I supported him for president. I raised $1 million for him. That's a lot of money. I supported him. He lost. He let us down. But he lost, and I never liked him much after that because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it." And Frank Luntz said, "He's a war hero. He's a war hero." Trump said, "He's not a war hero." Luntz said, "He's a war hero." Trump said, "He is a war hero." Luntz, 5.5 years in a Vietnamese prison camp. Trump, "He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, so he's a war hero." Do you agree with that? He's a war hero because he was captured, okay? I believe perhaps he's a war hero. But right now, he said some very bad things about a lot of people. So what I said is, John McCain, I disagree with him that these people aren't crazy. So he said a couple of times, 3 or 4 times, that John McCain is a war hero. What does the mainstream media say? They jumped on the comments with salacious headlines as pundits demanded that Trump leave the presidential race. NBC, "He's not a war hero. Donald Trump mocks John McCain's service." CBS, "Trump, McCain only a war hero because he was captured." ABC, "John McCain wants Donald Trump to apologize to veterans." Washington Post, "Trump slams McCain for being captured in Vietnam." Politico, "Trump attacks McCain. I like people who weren't captured." The Daily Beast, "Draft dodging Trump says POW McCain not a war hero." I doubt it was a serious medical issue. Up to that time, he was an active athlete. It was bullshit. I never heard of any foot problem other than them being well placed in his mouth. Trump had, in fact, 4 student deferments, right? So if you were up for the Vietnam War, there was a draft, of course, and if you were in school, if you were in college, you got student deferments. Trump had 4 student deferments and a temporary medical disqualification for bone spurs in his foot, but was still entered into the draft, getting numbers 356 out of 365. His high number never got picked. So, of course, I'm sure what he did was he submitted his doctor's reports and x-rays to the army, who said you can't serve. Then he ended up getting entered into the draft, which meant by definition he's not a draft dodger, and never got called. PunditFact, a site powered by PolitiFact.com, wrote, quote, "To the best of our knowledge, no one has charged Trump with violating the Selective Service Law. His student deferments were routine, and unless someone has new information, there is no legal issue with his medical deferment," because they're actually, by saying he's a draft dodger and faked or falsified or exaggerated his medical injury, they're accusing Donald Trump of a crime, and this has never been proven. Trump campaign statement, quote, "Although he was not a fan of the Vietnam War, yet another disaster. The war on women. He's already warred against all Mexicans. He's already warred against all veterans, and now apparently he's warring against all women. And this is the standard media operation. Take a small thing that you say and blow it up to everyone to paint you as a bigot." On August 6, 2015, Megyn Kelly, who is a personality at Fox News, ignited a discussion about Donald Trump and the war on women at the Fox News Republican debate. Megyn Kelly, quote, "Mr. Trump, one of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Donald Trump said, only Rosie O'Donnell. which got a good laughter, which we'll talk about in a moment. Kelly went on to say, for the record, it was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell, finger wag, finger wag. Trump, yeah, I'm sure it was. Kelly, your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president? And how will you answer the charge from Hillary Clinton, who was likely to be the Democratic nominee, that you are part of the war on women? Trump, I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. Applause. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness. And to be honest with you, this country doesn't have time either. And frankly, what I say, and oftentimes, it's fun, it's kidding, we have a good time. What I say is what I say. And honestly, Megan, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you, although I could probably maybe not be based on the way you have treated me, but I wouldn't do that. For those who don't know, the Donald Trump / Rosie O'Donnell feud began when Trump decided not to fire Miss USA Tara Conner after revelations of underage drinking, public sexual activities, and drug use. She tested positive for the use of cocaine, heroin, and crystal meth, which violated her contract of, decent behavior while she was Miss USA. Now, Trump allowed Miss Conner to keep her crown on the condition that she attend rehab. Quote, I've always been a believer in second chances. Tara is a good person. Tara has tried hard. Tara is going to be given a second chance. Now, Rosie O'Donnell then went on the television show called The View and insulted Trump, mocking his appearance, making fun of his hair, like that's a new one, and claiming that he had personally gone bankrupt. Quote, he's the moral authority, left the first wife, had an affair, left the second wife, had an affair, had kids both times, but he's the moral compass for 20-year-olds in America? The Celebrity Apprentice comment that Megyn Kelly referred to about the woman on her knees was directed at Brandy Roderick. She said, like him, I didn't even remember him saying that. I've always had a positive experience around Donald. He's always been encouraging. He's never been disrespectful to me. I don't condone men being derogatory, but I think he's just on television. He's trying to be funny. He didn't mean anything horrible by it. But just because she's not offended doesn't mean that the mainstream media can't clutch its pearls, faint on a couch, and get all Victorian. Now, as far as answering Hillary Clinton's charge that Trump is part of the war on women, from the book Trump Surviving at the Top, quote, I'm not a crusader for feminism, and I'm not against it either. I'm just oblivious to a person's gender when it comes to hiring people and handing out assignments, which is true. In general, the freer the market, the less discrimination it manifests, because it's only interested in one color, which is green. The menstrual attack. Donald Trump, quote, I'm very disappointed in Fox News. I think they probably had an agenda, but certainly I don't have a lot of respect for Megyn Kelly. She's a lightweight. I just don't respect her as a journalist. I have no respect for her. I don't think she's very good. I think she's highly overrated. She gets out and she starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions. And you can see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever, but she was, in my opinion, she was off base. And by the way, not in my opinion, in the opinion of hundreds of thousands of people on Twitter. Now, during the same conversation, Trump also criticized moderator Chris Wallace, saying there was blood pouring out of his eyes too. Now, of course, the media got all pearl clutchy and couch fainting and insinuated or directly stated that Trump was referring to her menstrual cycle. The campaign commented, Mr. Trump said blood was coming out of her eyes and whatever, meaning nose, but wanted to move on to more important topics. Only a deviant would think anything else. Now, Trump, after this, boycotted appearing on Fox, the channel, taking his ratings drawings power with him, and he is a giant eyeball magnet. He told Sean Hannity, another Fox personality, in a private phone call that he was never doing Fox again. Trump then appeared on all 4 Sunday non-Fox public affairs shows, and the main story was the bias of Fox News. Trump continued this strategy until Roger Ailes, who's the head of Fox News, called him supposedly desperate to broker a truce. Donald Trump, I don't start these fights, but I sure as hell win them. And I think that's something Americans respond to. The bankruptcies. 4 bankruptcies, 4 bankruptcies, 4 bankruptcies. If I repeat it, it becomes true and valid. So, routinely reported, Donald Trump has filed for bankruptcy, which is untrue. He has, in fact, filed for 4 business bankruptcies, quite different from personal bankruptcies, all of which were centered around Atlantic City properties. Atlantic City was a gambling mecca until it wasn't. And Donald Trump, as he says, one of the first people to get out. Donald Trump said, out of hundreds of deals, hundreds, on 4 occasions, I've taken advantage of the laws of this country like other people. The difference is when somebody else uses those laws, nobody writes about it. When I use it, it's like, oh, Trump, Trump, Trump. So bankruptcy number 1, the Trump Taj Mahal in 1991. The casino was nearly $3 billion in debt, while Trump had racked up nearly $900 million in personal liabilities. Trump gave up half of his ownership stake, but retained control of the property. And the option, just by the by, the option to not declaring bankruptcy, which is where you put a shield around the property while you work things out with creditors, you can just shut the whole thing down and fire everyone. Would that have been preferable to people? Bankruptcy number 2, Trump Castle Associates, 1992. The Plaza Hotel in New York had accumulated $550 million in debt. Trump gave up half of his interest in the Trump Plaza Hotel in New York to Citibank, but retained his stake in Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, as well as the Trump Castle Casino Resort. Bankruptcy number 3, Trump Hotel and Casino Resorts in 2004. The company had accrued an estimated $1.8 billion in debt and shared $500 million related to the Atlantic City casinos and a riverboat casino in Indiana. Trump turned over majority control of the company to his bondholders, but remained the single largest shareholder. Number 4, Trump Entertainment Resorts 09. After the 2008 economic recession, Trump gave up on his Atlantic City properties, resigning from the board and giving up his remaining stake in the company. Donald Trump said, I had the good sense, and I've gotten a lot of credit in the financial pages. 7 years ago, I left Atlantic City before it totally cratered. These lenders aren't babies. These are total killers. These are not the nice, sweet little people. One of the largest creditors in the first bankruptcy was financier Carl Icahn, who held $400 million in bonds. Backing up Trump's claim, it's just business, it's not personal, Icahn has not only endorsed Donald Trump for president, but agreed to be his Treasury Secretary if elected. And he declined to answer, saying, it's very personal. The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics. So he said, I'm not going to, and immediately the mainstream media reported that he was unable to name his favorite Bible verse. Bobby Jindal, a politician, Donald Trump's never read the Bible. BBC, does Donald Trump have a God problem? The Daily Beast, Donald Trump's biggest vulnerability is the Bible. Mother Jones, such a religious institution, Donald Trump once again shows that he's probably never cracked open a Bible in his life. Business Insider, Donald Trump just dodged 2 questions about the Bible. How do these people sleep? Trump eventually commented on his favorite Bible verse, Proverbs, the chapter, never bend to envy. I've had that thing all of my life where people are bending to envy. So he just paraphrased it, and then the media then proceeded to attack him for horribly misquoting the verse that he never actually, in fact, attempted to quote. Oh my God. It's like a kitten with a mirror. Trump's campaign clarified that he was referring to Proverbs 24:1-2. Quote, be thou not envious against evil men, neither desire to be with them, for their heart studieth destruction, and their lips talk of mischief. And anybody who doesn't know who he's talking about needs to stop watching this presentation. Muslims in 9/11. During a speech, Trump commented that thousands and thousands of American Muslims celebrated the 9/11 attacks, specifically noting reports from New Jersey and footage that he had seen on television with his own eyes. The mainstream media, including the New York Times and the Associated Press, immediately denounced Trump, claiming that there is or was no evidence of Muslims in America celebrating on September 11th. So let's rewind for a moment, people. Remember, he says strategic exaggeration. Hyperbole is helpful, so he exaggerated. The media didn't respond with, it was less than that. They responded with, there was none. Thus creating a controversy, thus creating an uproar, and thus, at a time when he's in trouble with his stance about Muslim immigration, he gets across to millions of Americans through the mainstream media, without having to buy a single ad, the actual facts, which we'll see in a moment. It didn't take long for a post-9/11 Washington Post article from Serge F. Kovaleski to surface. Quote, in Jersey City, within 2 hours of 2 jetliners plowing into the World Trade Center, law enforcement authorities detained and questioned a number of people who were allegedly seen celebrating the attacks and holding tailgate-style parties on rooftops while they watched the devastation on the other side of the river. So now an entire generation of people too young to remember 9/11 has been educated about American Muslims apparently or allegedly celebrating the 9/11 attacks. There was also follow-up from Princeton University lecturer Irfan Khawaja in July 2004. Quote, in an email to me on December 16, 2003, Kovaleski indicated that his information had come from the Jersey City Police Department and that he had confirmed the JCPD's information via interviews of eyewitnesses of the celebration. So American Muslims apparently or allegedly celebrating 9/11 in New Jersey. Television news reports have also surfaced covering the events in New Jersey, including footage. Despite the evidence that there were these celebrations in New Jersey, Kovaleski, who now works for the New York Times, started walking back the statements in his article. Trump commented on the situation during a speech. Now, the poor guy, you got to see this guy. I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's just flailing, pretending to be some reporter. Never missing an opportunity to attack the media, then took a precise screen grab of Trump flailing his arms, making it look like he was distinctly mocking the reporter, who it turns out is disabled. The New York Times, we think it's outrageous that he would ridicule the appearance of one of our reporters. Donald Trump. In my recent speech before 10,000 people in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, I merely mimicked what I thought would be a flustered reporter trying to get out of a statement he made long ago. If Mr. Kovaleski is handicapped, I would not know because I do not know what he looks like. The reporter responded, saying he had met Trump several times in the past and Trump demanded an apology from the New York Times for the accusation. Donald Trump, quote, the reporter must think a lot of himself if he thinks I remember him from decades ago, if I ever met him at all, which I doubt I did. He should stop using his disability to grandstand and get back to reporting for a paper that is rapidly going down the tubes. In closing, Trump accurately commented that Muslims celebrated after 9/11 in New Jersey. Did he exaggerate the numbers? Well, maybe he saw the footage of celebrations in the Middle East and conflated the two. Maybe he exaggerated, as he tells people he's going to do. Either way, the media was exposed as liars for claiming no celebrations ever took place, and Trump controlled both the narrative and the news cycle and got criticisms of American Muslims out to millions of people who probably have never heard anything about that. The Muslim immigration ban. You may have heard a little bit about this too. So, Donald Trump published a statement regarding Muslim immigration on his website, and both the mainstream media and the entire political establishment completely freaked out. The statement read, and I quote, Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what is going on. According to Pew Research, among others, there is great hatred towards Americans by large segments of the Muslim population. Most recently, a poll from the Center for Security Policy released data showing, quote, 25% of those polled agreed that violence against Americans here in the United States is justified as part of the global jihad. And 51% of those polled, quote, agreed that Muslims in America should have the choice of being governed according to Sharia. Sharia authorizes such atrocities as murder against non-believers who won't convert, beheadings, and more unthinkable acts that pose great harm to Americans, especially women. He may be referring to stonings or clitorectomies or female genital mutilation or something like that. These are my particular words added. Now, again, he wants to get this information out to as many people as possible, and he continues to use the hysterical media to do it. Quote, Mr. Trump stated, without looking at the various polling data, it is obvious to anybody. The hatred is beyond comprehension. Where this hatred comes from and why, we will have to determine. Until we are able to determine and understand this problem and the dangerous threat it poses, our country cannot be the victims of horrendous attacks by people that believe only in jihad and have no sense of reason or respect for human life. If I win the election for president, we are going to make America great again. Now, this, of course, came on the heels of a horrific attack by a jihadi husband and wife, Muslim extremists in San Bernardino. Now, of course, the media immediately declared Trump's proposal unconstitutional and even claimed that he wanted to ban Muslim U.S. servicemen from returning home. I suppose they overlooked the actual title of the statement, Donald J. Trump's Statement on Preventing Muslim Immigration. So, if you're immigrating, it means you're not a U.S. citizen, and it certainly doesn't apply to Muslims, servicemen overseas. So, regarding the constitutionality, not hard to look up, took us about 5.5 seconds. The Constitution contains the following provision: suspension of entry or imposition of restrictions by President. Quote from the Constitution. Whenever the President finds that the entry of any aliens or of any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may, by proclamation and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. So again, the media shows their ignorance of the Constitution, knee-jerk reaction to Donald Trump, hysterical exaggeration, false claims, and so on, thus driving down people's respect for and trust in the media. I mean, in fact, America is in the process of winding down wars against Islamic countries, and the idea that you let lots and lots of young military-age men from people you're currently at war with into your country, I don't know what to say. That's madness. It was then claimed that Muslims would no longer assist U.S. authorities in searching for radicalized would-be terrorists. See, if we, FBI, collectively have received nearly zero help from the Muslim community. He also added that the Muslim community leaders only, quote, give the air as if they are helping. And again, Hillary Clinton said, everyone realizes we need to tighten security. We have to do whatever it takes to keep our people safe. And a reporter asked her, does that include profiling? She said, well, I think we have to do whatever it takes. We are in a war situation and we're going to have to do things people do in times of war. We know that we have to make trade-offs in convenience in our freedom of movement. So she seems to be agreeing with Donald Trump. Sorry, that was Hillary Clinton after 9/11. Here's Hillary Clinton in 2015. Enough of the shameful, dangerous, anti-Muslim rhetoric from Republicans. And of course, they're saying all of that because Muslims tend to vote left, overwhelmingly tend to vote left, so Democrats are just protecting the voting base, not Americans. So, here's some nice bar graph. A question was asked, do you favor or oppose Donald Trump's proposal to temporarily ban Muslims who are not U.S. citizens from entering the United States until government officials can say with confidence they can identify those who are coming here to cause the country harm? That's a question that was asked. Do you support Donald Trump's plan? All voters, 50%, which you can see in yellow, supported the Trump plan. Among Republicans, it was 71%. Democrats really didn't like the idea at all. Only 25% of them approved of Donald Trump's plan. Although 20% of Democrats actually said they're going to vote for Trump, so I guess it would be those. Now, Trump didn't say yes or no and responded with his usual stock answer. We're going to have to look at a lot of things very closely. We're going to have to look at the mosques. We're going to have to look very, very carefully. However, the reporter reports it as, he wouldn't rule it out. Now, Trump is asked a series of other questions by reporters, and they continue to construct the narrative. Trump was asked about tracking Muslims, and he responded in the context of tracking Muslim Syrian refugees and building a border fence. So he was not talking about all Muslims, really focused on tracking Muslim Syrian refugees. The story grows as the media ascribed his comments to all American Muslims, even though he never said anything even remotely approximating such a statement. How is it all reported? New York Times. Donald Trump says he'd absolutely require Muslims to register. Time. Donald Trump is in favor of legally requiring American Muslims to register on a database. Raw story. Trump crosses the Nazi line. Maybe Muslims should wear special ID badges. Given that Trump, was involved in a lawsuit 35 years ago with some Polish immigrants hired by an outside contractor. Donald Trump said, "Oh, Anderson, when you have to go back 35 years to tell me about something, I think that's pretty pathetic, to be honest with you." When pressed on the immigration status of his employees, including subcontractors, Trump said, "I can't guarantee it. How can anyone? You have anywhere from 11 to 34 million illegal immigrants. I used to hear 11, now I hear 34 million. I can't guarantee anything, but I can say this. We work very hard to make sure that everybody is legal as opposed to illegal." Now, this 11 million, 34 million has been proposed by some researchers. President Vladimir Putin on Trump. Quote, "He is a very outstanding man, unquestionably talented. He is the absolute leader of the presidential race." It's actually, it's great when you have to go to a former KGB agent and head of a fairly autocratic government to get the truth about the American presidential race. Donald Trump said, "It is always a great honor to be so nicely complimented by a man so highly respected within his own country and beyond. I have always felt that Russia and the United States should be able to work well with each other towards defeating terrorism and restoring world peace, not to mention trade and all of the other benefits derived from mutual respect." The media was aghast at the positive exchange and asked Trump about Putin having had journalists killed. Donald Trump, quote, "As far as the reporters are concerned, obviously, I don't want that to happen. I think that's horrible. But in all fairness to Putin, you're saying he killed people. I haven't seen that. I don't know that he has. Have you been able to prove that? He's always denied it. It's never been proven that he's killed anybody. So, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, at least in our country. If you've been paying attention, I think you already know how this is reported in the mainstream media. CBS. Donald Trump defends Putin's record on killing journalists. Sorry. Terrible. Time. Trump brushes off Putin's alleged killing of journalists. Washington Times. Donald Trump says Vladimir Putin might kill journalists, but at least he's a leader. USA Today. Trump all but defends Putin on claims that he kills reporters. The Trump is an idiot claim, 6,745. Yes, we've been counting. The media attacked Trump's business confidence by claiming he could have been even richer if he did nothing and invested the inheritance from his father into a mutual fund of S&P 500 stocks. The Beam said, Bloomberg puts Trump's current net worth at $2.9 billion. If Trump had just put his father's money in a mutual fund that tracked the S&P 500 and spent his career finger painting, he'd have $8 billion. There are a number of pretty obvious and simple inaccuracies in these statements, including the amount of his inheritance. It's all speculative. When Trump received his inheritance, Trump's father died in 1999. This article calculates from 1974. That's quite a long time before his father died. His current net worth, Trump's current net worth is incorrect, and the fact that Trump's inheritance was actually a portion of the business that Trump had run for close to a decade. That's not liquidable easily. It's grossly misleading to say that Trump was gifted money from his rich father, given the business relationship. Donald apparently isn't rich enough. The media also circulated the claim that Donald Trump isn't rich enough to afford, quote, the $1.5 billion or more it's expected to cost him to reach the White House in 2016. Okay, so his net worth is $10 billion, which is a joke in public. Oprah Winfrey. During an interview, Trump was asked about his relationship with Oprah Winfrey and if she would make a good vice presidential candidate for his ticket. Trump responded by praising Oprah before saying, tongue-in-cheek, that she would make a great running mate. The media reported Trump's friendly comments as factual political news and the absurdity of the Trump campaign. I'm Donald J. Batman. At the Iowa State Fair, Trump used his personal helicopter to give free rides to a select group of children. Want to be a nice guy? Don't do it in America, if you're on the right. During one of the rides, one child asked, Mr. Trump, are you Batman? Trump responded, I am Batman. And everybody had a good laugh, except for the media, which attacked him for it. Huffington Post. Now some poor kid thinks Donald Trump is Batman. Andrea Romano from Mashable, quote, you can't just tell kids you're Batman. Donald Trump. Now, it's totally possible that Trump was joking around, but considering his lavish Bruce Waynian lifestyle, it's not too far-fetched to believe he might believe he is the Dark Knight. Well, to be fair, at the time of this publication, Freedomain Radio is unable to confirm or deny whether Donald J. Trump is in fact Batman. So, we stopped. we ran out of a carpal tunnel from typing. 43 years of misrepresentations. People say, oh, but he's not a conservative. Well, he's endorsed by Phyllis Schlafly and Ann Coulter, two women considered to be, fairly deep into the conservative trenches. He gave a speech at the RNC in the 80s, all conservative stuff. The important thing, the big lesson here, please, people, don't let people tell you what to think or feel. Don't let me do it. Don't let anyone else do it. And in particular, don't let the mainstream media do it. They're not trying to inform you. They're trying to control you. The future, if we're going to have one, must belong to people who think for themselves and who violently, emotionally push back against those who wish to control you with a false narrative. Thank you so much